All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Captain Cody Davis hanging out with you guys once again. And before we even get into today's video, I just want to say again, I dearly apologize for the lack of content you guys have been seeing come from the channel here over the last, I don't know, whatever it is, I guess really couple of months. Been super busy, holidays, everyone gets it. And then most of you that follow me know, over the last month, I've been dealing with no lower unit on my boat. In the Roland Martin 2-day championship, I ended up blowing my lower. And that's been a big part of the problem. I've been running guide trips on my father-in-law's boat, but I'm one of those people that hates borrowing things. So when it comes to work, I'll use it. But just as far as me getting out and going fishing and filming, I just don't want to do it. So I've just had it parked. And my lower unit was supposed to be in 2 days ago. Then it was supposed to be in yesterday. And then it was supposed to be here this morning. And it's currently 5 o'clock and I still am without a lower unit. Been hanging out at Okeechobee Fishing Headquarters all day, hanging out, waiting for the phone call. Put a new battery in my boat, and it's supposed to be delivered to my buddy Dave's house here in Lakeport, and it's still not here, so I'm sitting here at the Harney Pond boat ramp watching people catch specks and bluegill off the bank, and thought, let me hop out and just shoot some sort of video so I'm not just wasting time. So here we are. So hopefully by this afternoon or later tonight, I have the lower unit put on my boat. And I'll be back out on the water doing some filming for you guys because I'm really going to try and make a good push on YouTube here this year. I'm going to really try and get in the routine of uploading at least one, if not two videos every week. So stay tuned for that. But what we're going to be talking about here in this short clip, please excuse all the traffic going by me, is a bait that is probably my most valuable tool when it comes to guiding out here on Lake Okeechobee, as far as catching my customers' fish, big or just numbers of fish in general. And I'm sure it's a bait that you guys have in your arsenal. It's one of the most simplistic baits you can have, but it's something that I think it's overlooked by a lot of more advanced anglers, and it definitely shouldn't, because it definitely got overlooked by me. And then when I started guiding out here, it really opened my eyes as to how powerful and effective this bait is. And what we're going to be talking about specifically is the Gambler Lures 7-inch burner worm. I believe this is a 7-inch. I believe they make a 6 and a 7. It's the bigger one. Now, first and foremost, I will say, and most of you already know, that every company in the world makes some kind of swimming worm. I think Zoom was the first. They made the speed worm, and then, you know, there's a cutter worm. There's all kinds of different ones. The simple reason I'm a big fan of the Gambler version is because of the front of this bait. On a lot of other baits, when it comes to the swimming worm, they have more of a flat, just a cut off nose. That little bit of that rounded end out there does so much. It helps the bait not drag as much water. It helps the bait not rise up in the water column. And it helps it just come through the grass, the eel grass and things like that so much easier. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, if you put a nose cone or a small weight on the front, it rounds the nose off. It does. But if you have that flat face, it still drags water. It still tends to catch grass and whatnot. So having that little bit of that rounded end and nose helps a ton. Also, it's a very bulky bait. So it's a bigger profile, which I like more times than not out here on Okeechobee. And it's heavy. It's very dense. So when you're dealing with windy conditions and things, it enables you to throw it into the wind, fish into windy conditions. It just helps the bait stay down in the water, which is a big thing, I believe, when fishing out here. So the term speed worming really kind of developed here on Lake Okeechobee because people would make long casts with a ribbon tail worm and literally just swim it back to the boat. And now, you know, every company makes some kind of swimming worm. But the cool thing about this type of bait is you literally cannot do anything wrong with it. And that's something that I tell all my customers when we're throwing this guy. I have people that have fished competitively all over the country throwing this, and I have people that have never been fishing before in their life catching big bass on this bait out here on the lake. Because you can throw it out, you could just throw it out and reel it in. You could throw it out and dead stick it on the bottom. You could drag the bottom, you can buzz it on top. No matter how you're fishing this, you have a chance at catching not only a lot of fish, but a big fish. And I am not one who likes to throw a swimming style worm, but when I started guiding, Tom Mann Jr., shout out to him, was the one who told me, get yourself a 5-gallon bucket full of June bug burner worms for the lake and you'll have absolutely no issue. And he was right. I'm not one, you guys watch my videos, you know how I like to fish. And when at first, I was like, I don't want my customers to throw that because I didn't have that much confidence in it. But over time, having them throw this bait and seeing how many, not only fish, but just giant fish got put in my boat with this thing, I started picking it up. And now I literally don't go out on the lake without my worm rod in the boat. Couple quick things. Another little tip I'll give you, if you find yourself in deep water out here on Okeechobee, like in the Rim Canal, or maybe on some kind of a shell bar or a ledge, where you traditionally would throw a 10 or 12 inch ribbon tail worm, something I learned years ago is you can use, in that same situation, you could throw this burner worm out there and you will get more bites than you would with a traditional ribbon tail worm. When me and Breezy first started fishing together, I can remember a couple of instances where we were fishing some ledges, some stuff we have in the Rim Canal, clean water, just dragging the bottom, hopping off rocks and whatnot. So, of course, I went to a 10 or 12 inch ribbon tail, a big man's jelly worm, or a Gambler 13 inch ribbon tail. And she just was throwing the Gambler burner worm on a 1/4 ounce weight, counting rocks on the bottom. And she was literally getting 5 bites to my 1. And, it didn't really make sense to me, but I think a big part of it is our water tends to be a little dirtier here. So that big cut tail throws off a lot of water. Has a lot of vibration, and it's just that bigger profile, which I think our fish look towards here on Okeechobee. Another reason I think this works so well in Florida in general, whether you buy the Gambler one or any other one that you get your hands on, is it's that long but skinnier, long elongated profile, which I think imitates a needlefish very well. Whether you're on the St. Johns River, you're on the Harris Chain, you're on Kissimmee, or you're on Okeechobee, we have freshwater. There are saltwater species that have made their way into freshwater. A freshwater needlefish that live here in the lake. And the big bass absolutely gorge on them when they can find them. Another reason why a double prop devil's horse is such a staple down here, I believe. It's just that longer profile that those fish key in on. So this bait's great. I feel like it gets overlooked by a lot of people, but it's powerful. You can cover a lot of water with it, whether you're just swimming it through grass or even over the tops of pads, or you could really slow down, dead stick it. I do throw a Senko or a Senko style bait here from time to time, but I feel like you could accomplish the same thing with this bait. Whether it's throwing it to isolated reeds, throwing it to isolated pads, especially this time of year when these fish are spawning. The benefit to using this over a Senko style bait with a straight tail is this still throws a little bit of water, but you can work it pretty subtle, especially if you're dead sticking it and maybe just shaking it or laying it around some isolated stuff. But after the cast is done, you fish that reed or that rock or that's whatever it might be you're throwing at. When you're reeling this bait to the boat, you're swimming it back, you're fishing it, 100% of the time. It's a fish catcher. It catches big ones. And it's just something that don't overlook, especially when the bite's very tough. You're in maybe cold front conditions or very pressured areas. I can't tell you how many times I've been around back when Lake Okeechobee had submerged grass, and when we were around eelgrass clumps or even hydrilla where everyone and their brother was throwing a vibrating jig. I would almost fish this like a vibrating jig. Throw this out on a little bit heavier weight than normal, turn the handle, and anytime it got hung in eelgrass clumps or whatever, just give that rod a snap, and this bait would snap out of the grass. It's totally weedless, and they would hammer it. And like I said, you just can't do anything wrong with it. So if you have a beginner in your family who wants to get into fishing, or you're just on a tough bite, find yourself on a tough bite, definitely give this guy a shot. Junebug, they have a great color, which is black and purple, called Back At Ya. Gold Rush, black and blue. I just typically tend to stick with anything that's dark colored. Let the conditions for the day dictate what size weight you use on the front. Listen, lately I've been using a lot of this bait weightless, completely weightless, where I've been fishing. It works awesome. But you can go from a 1/16 all the way up to a 1/4 ounce weight, just depending on what feels right for you and what the conditions call for that day. Something I do with this bait 100% of the time is I throw this on 20-pound fluorocarbon. This isn't a bait where I'm throwing braid. If I'm going to be swimming something with braid, I'm going to go to a big easy, an easy swimmer, or maybe or a swim jig. But this, I'm trying to kind of scale down when I'm throwing this. It's kind of finesse Lake Okeechobee's version of finesse. So I always throw this on 20-pound fluoro. Sometimes I peg the weight, sometimes I don't. I don't think it matters. And I throw this on a 5/0 EWG style hook. 7/6 medium heavy rod. This is an ARC. This is a Tharp series 7/6 medium heavy. And a 7-to-1 reel. And this thing will catch fish 365 days out of the year out here on Okeechobee and really anywhere in Florida. And I don't have much experience traveling, but I'm sure this will catch them all over the country. They do make this in a 6-inch. I do know some people that do throw the smaller bait during tough conditions, but I typically just tend to stick with the old 7-inch and chucker and winder. So give this guy a shot. I'm sure most of you already have, but it's just something that definitely gets overlooked. And when people, I find myself when I'm complaining about how tough it is, I could literally slow down, take a deep breath, pick this guy up, and chuck it around. And more times than not, it's a bait that'll turn your day around for sure. So 7-inch Gambler burner worm. Give it a shot. And before you complain that the bite's tough, throw this guy out there and see what it can do for you. See you guys on the next one.